Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an amazing episode, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification button because this episode is going to be business, but also life changing. We are going to be talking about how to turn your pain into your power. And the gentleman I have going to talk to is a new friend I just made. I'm so humbled and grateful. He's a keynote speaker. He's an author. He's a coach. He's the CEO of an amazing company. He's doing it all. He's changing the game. He's changing people's lives. Aaron, brother, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Richard, man. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's my honor. And once I knew I had the honor of being able to talk to you, it's been all Aaron all week. I just been nothing but binging everything you're doing. So I love everything you're doing. But first of all, because we're going to be talking about resiliency, especially in business and in life. So, what is your definition of resiliency?
It's a big word. It's a big word in a lot of ways. I would say that resiliency, in the way that I see it, is choosing to go one more hour, one more minute, one more day, one more week, whatever that metric is. It's the choice against the quit. And I'm a fan of quitting in the right context. But resiliency to me is regularly choosing to continue. And that metric is different in every moment. Sometimes it feels like one more minute when you're doing a plank, might feel like forever. It also might feel like one more day at a tough job, one more day in a toxic relationship, one more week in a series of personal development. But to me, resiliency is always coming back to one more.
And I love that. And one of my mentors and friends, Ed Milet, just put a book out and talking about just doing one more, just surviving one more day, because some of us, like I said, when I talked earlier, when we get out of the military or whatever, we no longer have a mission. We no longer have camaraderie. We no longer have any money coming in. So a lot of us, including myself, which everybody knows my story, I didn't know who Richard was. I was Sergeant Kaufman, but I didn't know who Richard was. And having to come to that realization where I got to start my whole life over again. I got to reimagine. So that's what I want to talk about today. And but one thing you talked about earlier, that sometimes you can turn your pain into power. And I love one thing that Joel Osteen says is that he said, God will never waste a hurt. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, where do you come from? Where did you grow up? And how did you become the man that you are today?
Man, whew, that's a hell of a question. I love that. Uh, so I grew up in PG County, somewhere in between Baltimore, Maryland, and District of Columbia, DC. I went to high school that was incredibly diverse. I experienced a lot of setbacks really early on. I was picked on a lot as a kid, and really early in my life, I started to feel alone, and that trend was really the carving of, I think, who I am today, especially as I think about how much energy I put into community. Right, my pain of feeling alone is largely a catalyst for what I like to do now. But through school, my vice was soccer. I was an athlete through and through. That was a great, great, great escape for me, and I learned to, in that container, I learned how to work and suffer in some ways to achieve. And that relationship through sports is a really linear one, not quite the same outside, but it taught me a lot about suffering. It taught me a lot about working hard. It's where I got my work ethic from. My dad was a blue collar entrepreneur, ran a demolition company with my mom. They were very successful for a long time. And yet the crisis of 2008 put them really, really out of business. So I got to watch a really interesting arc from, being successful enough to sustain a business and sustain a lifestyle all the way through hardship. And as I was going through college, where a lot of that became very rocky, I was able to take soccer and make it my savior. Soccer was always my outlet. And while I excelled in school, my biggest struggle was also soccer. My my journey has always been like the extra guy. I was a walk on, so I didn't get the like praise and hoopla that I might have gotten if I'd have been recruited or had different circumstances. I dealt with what should have been a career-ending injury in high school and took that and set it down and kept figuring out how to make it work through a lot of energy and effort. And from college on, had a very different path than most people. I took a very dirty job. I graduated in the recession after my parents' business had dealt with some hardship. And I was a maintenance technician for an apartment complex with a 4-year degree and as a Division I athlete. And very dirty job with college students. And I watched my identity struggle. I was the athlete. I was a good student. And now I'm the guy cleaning up a toilet for college students, right? I had just finished school.
All right, then I got a question to ask you because I want to hop back in because I'm very interested in this because my son is a soccer player.
Nice.
So I'm very interested in that. But, he is the kind of guy that will show up 2 hours early, stay 2 hours late, set up everything. He has that kind of work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting ready. He'll be going to college next year, hopefully East Stroudsburg Warriors. But my question to you is, you said you were an athlete, but maybe you weren't the best athlete, but you put in the work. Mm-hmm. You put in the reps, you put in the extra work. What was it like? Because I know, like I said, I got thrown out of the military the first time for being a drug addict, got back in. Now I did everything I could be the ultimate soldier. And one day I had to hang up my uniform. So what was that day like when you hang up your uniform and you're no longer a Division I athlete? You're no longer wearing the uniform. What was that like?
So my struggle through college athletics was my mindset. My mindset was shit. I was trying so hard to like be accepted that I stopped doing what I loved, which was just playing and enjoying and working. And hanging that up was in some ways relieving because I didn't have this, like, I need to get accepted, but I also had this incredible disappointment from what I wasn't able to do. And now I recognize that physically I probably had it. Mentally, I was nowhere close. And when I had to set that piece down, there was a strange emptiness. I was still running. I was still trying to play casually in like an amateur league and still fighting in my own way. But I was very disappointed in myself. I was self-critical. I was angry that I hadn't done more with my time. And part of that pain was, well, if I'm not this, if this was my dream and I'm not there, I don't have a dream anymore. And it took me a long time to find another spark to really believe in. And that gap in between was a very hard one for me, a very hard one.
Now, also, like I said, when I said I actually went deep into your past, you're the kind of guy that, like me, like a lot of others, we might be in pain, but we're willing to take arrows for other people that are struggling. So we're willing to put our pain behind us and help others out. So talk to us a little bit about that, how, there's, how you actually took your pain and you have a lot of empathy. Mm-hmm. So talk about that, and what you did with that and what you do with that.
I'm not sure if this is trained or if this is innate. What I noticed though is that certain individuals that have weathered a lot, that have manage their own pain, they know, and I know what it feels like to be in pain and alone. And it's one thing to be in pain. There's a degree of tolerance that we all have. It's different depending on where your experience have taken you. But I noticed that the individuals that have suffered and been alone are usually very quick to make sure that someone else isn't suffering alone. And I think that empathy is a beautiful thing. To me, what that feels like and what that has always been as a responsibility is to make sure that someone doesn't cross their pain threshold. We can approach it, but as soon as we cross it, that's when danger is very, very present and very loud. That's when suicidal thoughts come up. That's when self-infliction, self-pain comes up. That's when hurting others comes up. And when you have enough awareness, I think there's an awareness that's a big key to this. It's probably the gift I've been given since I was very, very young, is a lot of awareness. With enough awareness, I know when I'm approaching my pain tolerance, I'm also aware of someone else's pain. I can sometimes feel their pain too. And because I've walked the line of my own pain threshold, I'm much more cognizant and mindful of, is someone approaching theirs? Because once that gets triggered, it's very hard to settle someone down. You're not rational. And to offer someone something I never got is a gift. To take an arrow for someone or defend against an arrow coming in for someone is a gift. And it's an opportunity to be for someone what I wanted the most. And that is a beautiful pain in itself, to say, hey, I dealt with this alone and I don't want anyone else to deal with this alone, is also the backbone of almost everything I've made. If I really break it down, I just don't want someone to suffer the way I did. And while that feels good in some moments, it also makes me angry that people all over the place are dealing with this shit alone, that they're battling and may feel like someone else isn't in front of them or beside them in this confrontation. And I don't know. I don't think it's a responsibility. I think it's just a choice. It's just like resiliency. It's a choice.
And I was just going to say, my friend Tony down below, he actually wrote an amazing book that I'm actually studying right now on pain and talking about the gift of pain. So if you ever get a chance, anybody ever get a chance to check out Tony's book, Tony, drop the link below so people can actually get the book. Total game changer. But now I also want to talk about, I'm a little bit older than you. When I was going through school, we had a project. It was called DARE, the drug program. Well, in my town, I'm in charge of. It's called LEAD now, so I'm in charge of that program. And a lot of people don't realize that on average, 5,000 adolescents attempt suicide every day.
Damn.
In the United States. So what was it that for you would walk to the edge but not jump off the edge? What was stopping you from taking that final step?
Probably two things. One was this fear that I was disappointing me. Like I've recognized that I had some potential, and I felt like that kind of choice wasn't one that I could ever be proud of. And I don't need to make all the right choices. I don't need to make all the right decisions. I do want to be proud of the reasons that I've made a choice. And I always felt like approaching that threshold was a chance for me to show my resiliency and show my strength. And I knew I would be very disappointed in that kind of decision. And I knew that if people were watching me, and in any way, this may be more later and recent than before, but I knew that if someone was looking at me as an inspiration or a model, I would be setting a very dangerous precedent, a very, very dangerous precedent. And to try to promote some of the things that I promote now, whether it be mental health or getting coaching, getting therapy, getting a support team, building a community. And a leader of those spaces, I have to be very mindful about my choices and how they show other people how to make their own. So that was number one. The second was that I could regularly find a place to convert pain into movement. Movement was my way of recognizing emotional struggle and boxing it into something I could genuinely understand. I couldn't understand for the longest time emotional pain. I still have to work really hard to understand emotional pain. But if I ran, I could run for 12 miles and it would feel like my chest was collapsing, but I understood that. And somehow that became an outlet, whether it was soccer and training, whether it was running, whether it was lifting, whether it was, a Tough Mudder or a Savage Race, any of those performances, I could always say internally, this pain I understand. This is something I'm familiar with. And in some ways, this pain is good for me. And that conversion was maybe not the healthiest at the time, but I know that it genuinely saved me from multiple very dark ditches where I felt lost, I felt hopeless. And to get out and run for however long it was, I could leave that moment and say, okay, that hurt. This hurts more. And I got through that. I'm okay now. And that was enough to ride the hill.
Okay, so now you're in college. You went to what college?
UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Okay, so Terrapins.
Even less cool, the Retrievers.
The Retrievers. Okay. So now, what did you do? Because, of course, we like to give back. We like to do this. We like to do that. And one of my favorite quotes, and I don't even remember who I first heard it from, said, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So unfortunately, we got to work in order to be able to help other people and do other things. So what did you do for work when you graduated from college?
So my first thing, I had a degree in financial economics. It was the middle of the recession. And my first thing was going to do maintenance. Like I was in a jumpsuit, a navy blue jumpsuit every day, riding around a community that was next to Towson University. And I was picking up trash. I was cleaning out dishwashers that clogged. I cleaned up toilets and sinks that clogged, bathtubs that clogged, fixed light bulbs, replaced siding and downspouts, worked on AC units and washers and dryers. Like it was a very different path than I had imagined. And that whole journey put me in a service element, right? I'm there to solve someone else's problem. As simple as that was, I got a lot of joy out of that. Surprisingly, or maybe not. My dad taught me to hang drywall at 6. He got me involved in fixing stuff really early. So it was a great way for me to feel good. At the end of the day, I went in and solved people's problems. And if I think to my career now, that's what I do, just at a different level and a different place. But my whole career started with a very dirty job. And most people, if I told them that, they would be like, no way, absolutely not. There's no way you started as a maintenance guy. But that was the beginning for me.
Okay, so now, because I talked to a gentleman the other day, and he got his first job as a maintenance guy, and then a couple years later, he actually owned the apartment buildings that he started at. But he said it was amazing doing that work, but every day realizing there's a guy sitting somewhere that's making this money, and I'm doing all the work, but he's sitting there, he's making the money. So it taught him. I mean, for you, your parents were entrepreneurs, but did it teach? Did he start clicking the whole entrepreneur mindset? Be like, wait a minute, I'm going into this person's apartment, and they're all paying one guy. So did that start mulling over in your head? Is that when you started getting the entrepreneurial bug?
I never connected that then. So a couple things happened. Interestingly, it took me probably up until the last 5 years to even use the language entrepreneur with my parents, right? He ran a demolition company, and I never thought to even use the word entrepreneur. I've only been in entrepreneurship for 8 years, and that language started to change. But what happened there, I went through a really bad breakup, hit another dark spell, and was missionless at this point. I remember waking up one day knowing that I had a soccer game to play on like a men's team in the evening. And for some reason that morning, I woke up and was like, I've got to ask a big question to the guy that's like organizing the team. So that night I went to him and said, hey, do you know anywhere I could go coach or volunteer? Like to just get around kids? Like I'm in it. I'm drinking a lot and having way too much fun, quote unquote fun, just to mask all this pain. I've got to find something. And he was like, you know what? There's an opportunity that a guy just started a club. I think you should get involved. And that was the beginning of entrepreneurship for me. When a week later, I was volunteering with a group of 6-year-olds playing soccer who couldn't tell their left foot from their right foot. I was instantly connected to being paid to do something I loved and feeling a sense of fulfillment in work. And I had never experienced that before. So that light bulb started to click almost like in the moment when I was coaching. And that catalyzed a whole lot of change. I remember coming back to my apartment after that coaching experience, and I wrote myself a promise. I still have it. I have it printed and filed. I wrote myself a promise. I said, Aaron, here are 6 things that you're going to do. And I did all 6. One was contingent on work. But I said, you're going to begin coaching and coach as aggressively as you can. Not the coaching part, just being the coach. You're going to coach. You're going to write a movie. You're going to, if work decides to pay for it, you're going to take the GMAT or whatever that you need to get an MBA. Thank God I didn't go down that route. You're going to give yourself 3 days a week where you don't go out and you just sit in and read and learn and grow. You're going to travel and find a way to get to a conference where other people in your career and profession, you can meet them. And there was maybe one more thing about like a book that I was going to read. And all of those things got checked off, but it all started with, I have no idea where I'm going. I'm very confused about my mission. I'm lost in this pain. What's going to get me out? And that, like being in a room where someone gave me, I don't know, it was probably $15 an hour, $20 an hour to take the thing that I loved the most at the time, my favorite game, and just impart some wisdom on a young adult was like a huge light bulb moment for me. And it started something really magical away from pain.
All right. So before we hop in there, really deep into, guys, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, 23 years in the military, I loved our coffee, but it always tastes. So I decided to call Vertical Coffee. It's twice the amount of caffeine, twice the taste. Crash part is 100% of every dollar goes to help veterans struggling with PTSD. I make money on it. It's a love project, but I get high on my own supply. So if you guys love coffee, if you guys ever go, StreamYard is actually only $10 just to start your own show. So if you're interested in having your own show, check out StreamYard, that link below. You said something earlier, because I'm a big believer in, we all have these iPhones, we all have these iPads, but there's something to putting something down on paper. It's writing something physically between the mind and there's a connection.
Yep.
Because usually when you write something down, it happens. So, that should write, your goal, your dreams, everything down. But you said 5 or 6 different things. So what made you just sit and write things down? Because a lot of people say, you know what, my notes phone and I'll be all right. So what was you making decide, all right, I'm gonna write every day where I can see these?
I was always that guy at the bar with a beer next to me and a napkin in front of me and a pen. Like that was just my thing. I would sit at the bar and be like, I got an idea. Hey, can I get a pen and a napkin? And I'd put an idea on a napkin. And that might be a sketch. That might be a word. That might be a phrase. But I was always really intentional about writing. I've been a sketch artist in so many days of school. Like I think if I found my high school notebook, there would be more sketches than there would be actual math or English. And when when it came down to a commitment I was going to make, what felt appropriate, and I would recommend this to anybody that's tuned in, what felt powerful was to get it out of me and to no longer let it just sit in this idea land and this space of like undefined. To put it on paper made it very real. And what I have learned since that moment is what I was really doing is I was outlining to myself what I wanted because I didn't know. To use the word we were talking about earlier, I was missionless. I had no direction. I was lost and I was hurt. And to put it on paper and then look at it meant that I had to square up to it. It summoned me to be bigger. It called me to think larger. And by having it in front of me, it was no longer just a cloudy thought among the other chaotic thoughts I had. And getting really clear on this is what I want has always been difficult for me. But to have it on paper in 6 sentences gave me a really strong power over my direction. And in any analogy that I could ever make that's really fitting for what a mission does, what direction does, what finding the right community and help does, without a destination and a location, a GPS is very, very worthless. You need both of those things. I knew exactly where I was. I was swimming in a sea of pain. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And putting this piece of paper in front of me with my handwriting, sloppy as it may be, and sticking it on my refrigerator door gave me the other part of the GPS. And now I could start to map how I get from where I am to where I want to go. It put a fire under me. It gave me, even for where it was, a very small amount of purpose. And it finally, after all of that struggle and pain and waking up, I remember I was waking up daily listening to a John Mayer song called The War of My Life. And I knew that I'm just going to keep going one more day. It's the war of my life. I gotta get out of this pain. But I remember that moment of, oh shit, here's some clarity. Let's go this direction. And it wasn't perfect. It was just movement. And I needed that more than anything. That was my medicine.
Okay, so now I got to ask this again. I don't know what to ask. I've been in recovery over 30, drug and alcohol free since 1989. But when I started coaching people as a life coach, and struggled with asking people to come, because I figured, hey, I got saved. I'm not living here. I'm not in jail. So I'm get forward. A lot of people say, well, I want to get to coaching, or I want to public speaker, be a speaker, but I feel bad asking for people for money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard that, but on that.
To me, it's really common. I think there's like 2 main elements of why we are afraid to ask for money. Both of them are emotional. One is we don't feel like we're worth it. And I grappled with that for a long time. The second is that it feels, depending on how we've grown up, it feels wrong to ask for money for something that we enjoy. So it feels incongruent. If we would do it for free, we often feel very bad about saying, no, you should pay me. I love the hell out of this, but you should pay me. And I did a lot of work for free really early on. I think there is a period that we can all go through where we're trying, we're in trial, we are learning, we are growing, and we say to someone else, I don't want to be paid because I might make some mistakes. But there is a point that we overturn. And it took me about 4.5 years to get to this point where I knew that even if I loved it, I was excellent at it because I had practiced it. I worked hard for it. I had honed a skill. And by saying, I want you to pay me, something magical happened on the other side. People started taking me way more serious. People started taking the actions I recommended way more serious. And there was a degree of accountability that wasn't present before. When I coached someone that was, let's say, $50 a month for a bunch of phone calls, they had no real emphasis, no loss on the line. There was no skin in the game or low skin in the game. And as that has climbed and changed and evolved, now there's a lot more skin in the game. So someone's a lot more likely to take me serious and take the advice serious and make action and make moves. And depending on what the side hustle is, this is just what I believe inherently. If you don't think you're worth it, that's something to work on internally. That's a pain. Worthiness is a pain, not enough. I'm not enough. And that's something that we can work on. But our ability to ask for what we're worth takes a tremendous amount of courage. I know that. It takes a lot of courage to say, hey, I'm 500 an hour, or hey, I'm this, or hey, a speaking gig is X, or my product is Y. It takes courage. And without that courage, I don't believe that you can transform your life. And most people want to transform their lives. I think that transformation requires three things. You need clarity. Where are you going? Much like having a napkin on a refrigerator of the things I want to commit to. You need context. Why does the pain I'm currently experiencing matter? How does it help me in my future? And then you need courage. You need bold choices that you can work towards. And even if you fail miserably, courage to continue, courage to be resilient. And those three pillars, in my opinion, are like the direction that you travel. Courage being the tip of the arrowhead. And with those things, you can navigate pain. As long as you're committed to keeping momentum moving forward, you can navigate pain. And I'm a big believer in those three as the staples for anybody that is lost or suffering. And if you can connect to those three, I truly believe that you can make it out. And Richard, we've got to touch base on some of the darkness that we've both experienced. And I think maybe that's important. Maybe we had to go through that so we could teach others, so we could help others, lift them up.
And I that's something that I truly love. But everything free. One of my friends, Russell Brunson, said, "Those pay attention." And I was also, that because we were talking, and you can't pour from a cup.
Yeah.
You cannot help other people unless you have money in your account. And I didn't realize until we started the show started making money that a veteran can reach out and say, "Bro, I need help with something," and I sending out a check. Just don't tell anybody,
Yep.
Those things, because there's an over, there's an, but and like you're saying, if you don't have it, you people, and I think once we get okay, maybe for help, but there's a reason, because I want to help people on a bigger scale, and of course I need more money. You know what I mean? If you're coming from a place of being genuine, and caring, people don't mind. We're gonna, he's gonna charge event, but we know that he's going to be paying it forward. He's doing, so it's coming from a place of forward. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. The rhetoric that I grew up around was like, money is evil and greed is bad. And to me, there's a very big difference between being greedy and being intentional. If having more and accumulating more wealth, more money allows me to be more charitable, more philanthropic, invest in the underrepresented entrepreneurs, put programs in place to support individuals that have been displaced, or to help those that are struggling with their mental health, then the money isn't simply to satisfy my material demands. It's there to to do good in the world. And I'm a big believer in the like tenets of conscious capitalism. Look, grow, expand with no limit, break through your ceiling, identify who you want to become, but use that capital in a meaningful way. And that's not to say that I don't have my own like lust for nice things. I certainly do. And also, that's not the primary driver for impact. And I really love that point about, people that you pay attention, and that you can do really good by doing well. And I think that statement, you can do really good by doing well, is a really simple one, but a hard one to get. If I have more capital at my disposal and at my fingertips, I can go make more impact in the world. Cut and dry. I used to argue it. I can't argue it anymore. You can do way more in the world if you have resources. And as I've discovered, because my journey has really been a lopsided experience of a lot of things, if you try to help people and you're not taken care of, you begin to build a lot of resent. Another period of struggle for me was like 3 years into business. And I was building a lot of resentment for like the people I was trying to help, because I was suffering. I was not putting any water in my cup. I was empty, and trying to help with an empty cup. Not only was I not helpful, I was like genuinely angry. I was angry at me, but still, it's not a good look.
I'm a big reader. I'm a ninth about I've 6,000 books. My wife asked me yesterday, I have 15 books going right now. An audio book by Jocko Will, but for people that from was he once said, you can have any world, enough people they want. So talk to us about, now you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a coach, you own Money Club. Talk to us a little bit about what's now, world now, besides being a daddy to a young.
my world has evolved a lot. There's so much that I'm really grateful for. What it looks like, and even the way I say it sounds like all this happened overnight. And I would encourage anyone to revisit a judgment like that. Not because I'm afraid of being judged, but because it's detrimental to your own progress. This whole world that I've created is 10, maybe 12 years in the making. When I was coaching on the side and then moving up in my profession, soccer and coaching was a big part of my history. Then as I got into being a manager and started to start up another side hustle, I was consulting and failed miserably. Over the course of a lot of years and a lot of attempts, I failed more times than most people will ever fail. And now I've got a coaching company that does retreats. We work with entrepreneurs, with side hustlers, with salespeople, and help them grow and develop a life of intention and purpose, help them find their mission so that their growth and expansion is fulfilling, I think, in some regards. And that has come from a lot of work with athletes, a lot of work with friends and peers, and has just developed over a long period of time. It looks like I just one day said, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to, do a lot of work and help other people. It started with working with 6-year-olds that couldn't tell their left foot from their right foot when we were running soccer drills. And when you take that whole story and you compress it down into a sentence, it just seems like it's instant. This is a long-term story. I run a company that teaches people about money. So I had to learn about money, and I have been studying money incessantly for 10 years, studying wealth, studying how it's built, studying credit, studying how people make decisions, the way the mind works, because money is mostly emotional. I've also spent a lot of time in the trenches trying to learn how to serve people, how to give, how to contribute, how to impact, from running a nonprofit to expanding Money Club into employee wellness programs. But what I appreciate the most about all of these things is that they all have a very common theme. Each of them took a pain and turned it into a community or a movement. The Even writing the book is called Let Her Play. Let Her Play was me taking all of the frustration that I had, all of the conversations I had with parents that would assist their daughters in being not only better players, but better people. And I put it into a book. It was, I feel alone in this. I feel like these ideas need to be out in the world. And I'm sure other coaches and other parents need to experience this. There's a bottling of pain. I didn't understand money. I wasn't gifted a lot. I wasn't given a lot. My circumstances were challenging growing up in many ways. And after college, I had no direction and no understanding of where to go to build a life that I wanted. Well, if I couldn't find it, I'm going to build it. And that theme of, man, I'm really frustrated, I can't find what I want, to, hey, I'm going to go build it, has been my entire MO for a long time. And now I'm very lucky and grateful to say, look, it's worked very well for me, and it's worked very well for other people. And to me, that's the win, is that for every step that I take forward, I'm able to lay down a stairway behind me. And man, Richard, I look at some of the things that are in a bio or on my like entrepreneur resume, and I sometimes have to pinch myself to understand that this all came from a kid that was really lost and really hurt a long time ago and felt very isolated. And it's very easy to feel isolated as an entrepreneur. And also, I'm incredibly committed to helping people find a home and find a mission and find a direction. And I've had to do a lot of work to be able to do this for myself. And my goal is to make it 10 times, 100 times easier for someone to do it for themselves, because they're not alone.
And I love you got, this show, I think we're in the top 0.5% of all in the world. I've had amazing guests like yourself, Robert Kiyosaki, Sharon Lecter, David Meltzer. I've had hopefully Ed Milet's come on the show. If you're listening, you got to come on. But the find that more successful ones are have gratitude. And was on the show. I lost at age 29. Company's worth $2 billion now. He said, but I lead with gratitude. He said, when I wake up, I say thank you for waking me up to another day. When I go to bed at night, I wake up and I say, Lord, thank you for giving me another day. And for me, because I don't know if you know, but I was almost 100%. Oh, whoa, what just happened? Wait. Wait.
You good?
I know where I went. But let me hold. I don't know. I don't. What sucks being a low tech redneck.
And this is all part of the show. This is like a weird like ad lib. It's great.
Yeah, was 3 I was almost 100% blind. Wow. I lost vision. Like when I go to bed at night, I say, Lord, say 3 things I'm grateful for. Usually it's my wife, my house, and my saving, being saved. But then when I wake up, if I open my eyes and I'm having a good day. I'm going to have an amazing day. So with gratitude, and I go to sleep with gratitude. The people that are more successful and fulfilled in life are gratitude. Meltzer said, he said, gratitude and anger exist in the same. And I would make, so if a lot of people are feeling anxious, start writing some things down that work for, and that sometimes gets you out of a, what I'm trying to say?
It's great advice. Yeah, it's hard to be grateful sometimes, and I think it's important to acknowledge. And also, gratitude doesn't have to be this like overwhelming positive in your life. It can be for the smallest thing, person that holds the door open, the guy that, waves when you drive by. It can be the fact that it's sunshine and clouds today. It can be that, you can smell sort of fresh cut grass. It doesn't need to be massive. And sometimes that's an important reminder for someone that's in it, where they're like, well, I'm not grateful because I don't have all the things that I wanted. And my bank account isn't looking very clean. And I'm struggling to make things work, and I'm hurting. And I think to lower the bar a little bit and just say the smaller things that we take for granted. Vision. Can you walk? Can you run? I've been injured before where I couldn't walk and run. And I'm grateful to walk and run and to be able to walk and run. And that's a really small thing, but gratitude is such a powerful vehicle for transforming your perspective when you're hurting, especially.
Yeah. All right. So now I got to, because you touched, Memorial Day 2012 was suicide, attempted to drive a pillar out my eye and turn on the radio. Song by Drake came on. God did. And I saw my 9-month-old baby picture in my mind. Wow. And that's why I did not to kill myself. That moment is this: I'd rather be in a father more than a statistic.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I needed to start thinking about legacy. So now you have a baby boy. Mind shift change when you have a child, because now you're thinking, not only am I a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm going to create legacy. So talk a little bit about that, because that doesn't get talked enough. We talk about the houses, cars, the boats, talk about the family, children, wives,
Dude, it's a really important conversation. I think of legacy as the stories that he will tell of the two of us. And that helps me a lot to get away from legacy being, an empire that he's taking over. It's the stories that he and I will share and that he'll tell about us. When he was first born, he was crying one night and I couldn't get him to stop. I took him in the closet, closed the door just so that the sound wouldn't bounce through the room. And I sat there to try to help him, and I couldn't. And I just started crying. I couldn't give him any ease. It was just like gas pain. It had to work its way out. But I wanted to be there, right? I just wanted to be there for that. And I didn't have many dads talk about, like, as soon as my son is born, I'm like, they had this epiphany and their whole life is different. That's not what I got. What I got was a sense of change that was slow. And it's been very slow. He's 3.5 months old, give or take. And what I'm noticing is that there's a different hue to what I'm doing and how I think about my time and how I think about my actions. I want him to be on coaching calls with me. I want him to be like in the room when he hears the stuff that I'm helping people through and that I'm helping myself through and that my coaches are helping me through. I want him to know how to do the work. I want him to know that if he's hurting, that he can talk to me. I want him to feel safe around me. I want him to feel welcome to be imperfect. I want him to feel like he always has someone that he can confide in. And what's really interesting about that, Richard, is I have to first offer that to me. I have to do that for me first. And it's really calling me to think a bit bigger about every single action. I'm already a very intentional man, but I'm now being called to think another level deeper with things I do, the things I pursue, what I say yes to, what I say no to, and the kind of time and moments that I can create with him so that he has something really special to share. I'm grateful for every day I'm alive. I also know that shit can go wrong any day. So I never know what that moment's going to be like. I'm just here to be very intentional about shared memories and including him so he can learn through me and from me, because I've got a very different life than I used to have. And I want to show him how to build his own life and build his own legacy for himself. And it's taken a lot for me to say, hey, are you doing this the way you want him to do it? And that is a very swift kick in the cojones to change some behaviors. I've already had to adapt a lot to very different mentalities and very different actions that no one's taught me to do. If I repeat the same pattern that I got given, it won't become what I want to become. So it's forcing me to make new choices. It's forcing me to speak different, to include different. And most of all, I have had to say no 10 times more than I ever had. And that is a hard lesson right now.
And I want to say, about 3 years ago, before I started on this whole podcast journey, I got to hang out in her church, and it started this whole thing. So it's guys, but actually, if you actually watch videos, you wounded war hanging up in his arm. I said, Gary, I'm living here, giving me a nugget of, and he said, Rich, he said, your legacy will always be more valuable currency. And that kind of just blew my mind. Then I had a friend that came on, his name is, and he told me, my butt heads a lot because we're the same person. And he said, every time you talk to your daughter, talking to a 9-year-old that you were, you're talking to your kind of blue mind. It's like, wait a minute, he's right. And like you said, if you keep doing the same, expecting a different result, that's insanity.
Yep.
But we kind of like, I have to, I talk to my beautiful daughter, but I think, well, that's 9. What do they need? Do they like turn off early? She wants to put and I'm like, but wants to do that. I think we get so wrapped in the axle and this and entrepreneurship that we forget people that are at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Like one time in the mental health space, I actually have that I do called Today Outside. And my wife looked at me in the eye and said, you know what? You help somebody else. Don't even help. And I'm the one that's here. Amazing how we're so worried about change that we kind of forget our own little ways where we should in out side in. So is that like that what you're talking about, right?
Dude, you nailed it, man. It's really easy. It's really easy to get distracted by our importances. I find that the average person pays attention to 2 or 3 things. And there's obviously like to-do lists in each of those 2 or 3 things, but that might be job, that might be business, that might be multiple businesses. And there's a slew of people behind us that are potentially frustrated that they're not being attended to. And I think in building a community, it's expected that we're going to have focuses that change. And the best opportunity that we have is to regularly check in, not with the community that we're building, because that's a concentrated focus for us. That's an importance for us. It's to check in with the people that are not a part of the community and say, what is it that you see in me? That might be, again, that could be a coach, a therapist. It could be a peer that's not directly involved. But when we have some kind of mission that we're on, we're so fixated on the mission that we don't often recognize that we're compromising the mission that we initially set out for because we're so wrapped in it. And finding a healthy amount of detachment from the mission is really important, because we're likely to forget about family dinner and forget about, if I coach 25 people So I have 25 calls a week, and each of them is about not just being your best self, but living a life of intention and being clear, having the context and the courage you need to build a life that you want. But I'm not helping little man, baby EQ. I'm not helping him do that for himself. What am I doing? Because he doesn't care that I'm helping 1,000 people. He needs a dad.
Yeah.
And to have a checkpoint, somebody outside to keep you on track has always been my best strategy. Find people that can keep you on track, measure effectively, track the things that matter, not just the importances that we say, hey, this is my number one, but track the things that truly make a difference in that legacy conversation.
And that's I started it. I talk about Russell. He changed a lot of things by his book, the trilogy series. But for me, my changed when becoming a social media creator and not a consumer.
Yep.
I realized that, do this for a living, but I shut my. It's family
I
time.
love that.
It's husband time. You know, but I mean, of course, it's a big. So used to being on day long. Okay, you know what? I'm done at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. I'm done. But I think it became when you can get up that I'm no longer creator now. I'm consuming. All I'm doing is watching stupid videos on TikTok for and I'm not really taking care of the stuff that I got to take care of. I realize successful. They also live by a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Even like James Clear, wrote the book Atomic Habits. He talks about your ritual and your morning actually makes your whole day. And how, like for me, I don't have a calendar. I'm, even like some David Meltzer says, I may do that. He says, but I make sure every day I make time to call my mother. I make time to my wife and kiss my wife and talk to the kid. He said he actually blocks that time. And I think, we block so much time out for everything else, but we don't block time out for family, time out for doing this, or eventually you're going to have to block time out for your divorce attorney. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So for the last couple of minutes, just talk about how to live a good life while all at the same time.
The biggest word is boundaries. Boundaries are an incredibly hard thing to set. It takes a lot of practice. It's taken me a lot of years. But boundaries have really set me free to operate at a higher level and get more done efficiently so that I can be with the people that matter the most. Do I get it right all the time? No. So that's an important asterisk to keep. But boundaries are a great foundation to talk about because for a morning routine, you'll need a boundary. For an evening with the family, you'll need a boundary. For working 8 hours a day rather than 11 hours a day, you'll need a boundary. It's like installing a fence between a yard. It really helps you say that is not my yard. This is my yard. But what I find fascinating about things like a morning routine is it's one of the most critical things that I do. I get up, I sit by a fire, I journal, I meditate, I read a little bit. I might drop a note in the fire that something I need to let go of. So I'll write it down and pop it in and say, hey, I'm letting go of this. But what that really does is it starts my day the same way. It's really that simple. It gives me the same orientation to the day every day. Doesn't matter if the world is on fire, if I have a lot of problems, if I'm nervous about conversations I need to have, if I'm not performing, if I'm not showing up the way I want to. It's just consistency in that. And if you want to get more done in your day, there's two rules that I live by to make more happen in a day. Number one is, what is my relationship with delegation? Do I have to do it myself? And am I afraid to either maybe pay somebody or recruit somebody that can help me do something? If I'm afraid to delegate, I am trapped where I am. It is a box that you are stuck in. So we've got to learn how to delegate. And to the conversation of boundaries, if you want to do more in your life, you're going to have to say no to 70% of things. The more you say yes, the less valuable your yes is. Yes has diminishing returns. So our ability to get more done has to do with saying no to smaller things, smaller wins, maybe less impactful things. I can go impact one person, or I can go work on the thing that will impact thousands. That is a hard line in the sand. And anyone listening that wants to get more and do more out of life, the inevitable confrontation that you will face is what matters most. And we have a moving hierarchy at all times. So to get really clear on, hey, this is my North Star, you at least have something to reference back to. When you get off track, North Star. Get on track, North Star. You've got something to look towards. If you do not know that, if you do not have clarity, it is very hard to guide and get more out of life. You will inevitably be chasing. You go left, then you go right. You go left, then you go right. And you feel like you make no progress. That's when pain happens. Clarity is a great antidote to pain, but it's not a fun antidote. And, Richard, I love this loop in of legacy and family, because many of us, we go left and right. We feel pain, and we withdraw from any of the things that we find most important. It could be family, it could be health, etc. And I think even time for you should belong in the boundary setting. Time for just me, time for just my healing, my self-love. But the key word of the day in that conversation is boundaries. And if you have a tough relationship with boundaries, it is going to be very hard for you to get more out of your day and more out of your life and more out of your friends and more out of your business. It all starts with where are your no's and what are you aiming for? Having clarity.
I love that. And somebody once told me, sometimes you got your life, cut stuff out of your life. You said, sometimes it's a addition, subtraction. Sometimes you got to you got to do what's right for you.
Yep.
My last is, how do we find you? How do we support your mission? What can we do to support you in what you got going on?
Well, I appreciate the question. The easiest way to find me is aaronvelky.com, AARON, V as in victory, ELKY.com. You can find me on any social platform, all the same, just my full name, Aaron Velky. That's I don't know, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those, LinkedIn. The mission I'm on right now can be supported best in one of two ways. The first is I would ask everyone to have a really good look in the mirror about your relationship with money and have a conversation with someone you know about it. When money is like sex, we just don't talk about it. Money's like drugs. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about mental health, right? And one of the missions I've been on for a long time is to make the conversation of money very safe and to make learning about money very, very safe. And that often starts with people just raising their hand and saying, hey, I'd like to ask you some questions. Or, hey, how do I do this? Or, hey, Aaron, where can I learn more? If you're not willing to talk about it, you can't move forward. So that's one way, is just to begin the conversation. The second thing that I'm working on is it's a company called Get Out of Your Own Way. We coach the entrepreneurs, the side hustlers, the sellers. And while that mission is, a coaching company and certainly has its own agenda as far as a business goes, the real initiative is to help people remove their blocks. And a great way to support that mission and proliferate, spread what we really care about is for each individual that has listened to this phone call to reach out to someone they know that might be hurting, someone they know that might be stuck, and to offer them 15 minutes, 20 minutes of their time, just so that they don't feel alone. And I can't tell you how powerful enough that simple motion and simple act can be. If you can help someone in their darkest moment, whether it be paid or unpaid, I truly believe it comes back to you tenfold. So help someone get out of their own way. Help someone see a little bit of light. Make a phone call to a friend. Invite the conversation to your doorstep where you can sit with a neighbor, sit with a peer. And if you're the one that needs the help, raise your hand and ask for it. those things, that would mean the most to me. I don't need someone to drive business my way. I just want to help, and I want to help others, and that's the simplest way to do it.
Guys, so make sure that you're following. I just followed all LinkedIn, TikTok. Make sure you're following. So, guys, thank you, brother. I'm so humbled to be able to hang out and build generational relationship. So, I just want to say thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Richard. This was an awesome conversation.
It's my pleasure and my. So, guys, like my T-shirt says, I decide. The most important in the English language. Either decide today to be, or you can be a victor. I want you to choose to be a victor today. Booker T. Washington. If you want to help, helps. All right, guys. I love you. See you guys tomorrow. And remember, momentum. The only way to go is but up. And I'll talk to you tomorrow, brother. Thank you so much. Bless you and the family.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you, man.